this bill be now read a second time. I call the member for Balmain.
Thank you very much, and I rise this evening to address the Small Business Commissioner Bill. I welcome this bill. I welcome the fact that the government has now introduced a legislative framework for the Small Business Commissioner. It's an important piece of legislation. It's a piece of legislation that, in our view, speaking on behalf of the Greens, we think could be improved, and I'll spend some time this evening addressing the opportunities which this bill allows for us to make sure that we can protect, nourish and support small businesses in our local community. As we've heard this evening, the object of the bill is to establish the role of the Small Business Commissioner. The Commissioner will be able to input on behalf of the small business sector in relation to policy development and assist small businesses in their dealings with other businesses and government agencies. The Commissioner will be able to investigate and assist in the resolution of disputes involving small business, and the Commissioner is responsible for providing low-cost mediation services for small businesses to keep disputes out of control. Positive things. Low-cost mediation, as we've heard, is important. Helping negotiate the minefield of government is important. We've also heard about the importance of small business in the community. It's pretty clear that we all have seen in our own electorates the power of individual enterprise, of collective enterprise, the importance of the self-reliance that can come from starting one's own business, and the important role that entrepreneurship plays in our local community. When the Small Business Commissioner introduced the consultation paper, it was a paper which I, on behalf of the Greens of New South Wales, made a contribution to. In my submission to that paper, we highlighted the important role that the small businesses play in our community. In particular, we identified the important elements that the Small Business Commissioner can contribute to small business. And in my community, small businesses are indeed the heartblood, the heart of our community. And there's two fantastic chambers of commerce, the Balmain-Roselle Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Annandale-Leichhardt Chamber of Commerce, both of which are doing incredible work to promote small business, to make sure that these local areas are a great place for shopping. The Glebe Chamber of Commerce, again, doing excellent work promoting themselves and their area as a destination in the local community. I wanted to mention in particular from the Balmain-Roselle Chamber of Commerce, the President Jodie Stewart, the Treasurer Sue Taylor, the Policy and Advocacy Effective Advocate, I have to say, Grant Prowl, the Secretary Pam Merle, and from the Annandale Chamber of Commerce, the Annandale-Leichhardt Annandale Chamber of Commerce, Simon Dyer, who's a fantastic president. He's been there forever, involved in the retail industry for many years, and is a real leader in the retail community in the Leichhardt area. Anitra Morgan, the Executive Officer, Perry de Pasquale, the Treasurer, Maria Bellissimo Magrin, she is also involved in the Management Committee, doing fantastic work, as well as Darren Spear and Barbara Horgan, Andrea Comastri, Derek Rutherby, and last but not least, Jennifer Aaron, all of which are making a fantastic contribution to the community. And it's important for us to recognise, as I highlighted in my submission, that small business, of course, plays an important role. The governments do need to provide additional support to small businesses. Appropriate support and advice can make a significant difference. And working through the bureaucracy of government is important. But we feel that there are opportunities for the government to strengthen this bill, because small businesses and farmers are vulnerable to being exploited by big business and the supermarket duopoly. We Greens have been consulting with small business, not just in my electorate, but around New South Wales, experts and other stakeholders to develop a legislative framework which recognises and protects small business and farmers. I gave notice of the Small Business and Farming Commissioner Bill 2012. I think it was just about the same day as this bill was introduced. This bill provides a legislative framework for the New South Wales Small Business Commissioner, protecting small business, including farmers, from exploitation by big businesses and vested interests. The Small Business Commissioner, in our view, should be given legislative power to stand up for small businesses, including farmers. The government's bill, unfortunately, doesn't seem to provide the Commissioner with any effective powers. It's our view that the Commissioner needs to be able to protect and support small businesses, especially when dealing with large players when there is an imbalance in power and influence. This is in particular when it comes to farmers who need protection from monopolistic behaviour, in particularly from supermarkets and other supply chain actors. Of course, we don't have any additional legal rights in this bill, and I wanted to spend just a few minutes addressing some of the things which the Minister might consider. I might just note that federally the Australian Greens have announced their intention to formalise the role of the Federal Small Business Commissioner in legislation, the private members bill, to be introduced into the Senate in late February. We believe that the legislated Small Business Commissioner is important, and while we won't oppose this bill, and I support the elements of the bill that we have before us, there are actions the government could consider taking. I note that Labor has introduced a bill in the upper house, and that bill is modelled on some other bills in states in Australia. It has three basic elements: an alternative dispute resolution role for the Small Business Commissioner, provision of industry codes of practice, and that's something this bill doesn't incorporate. Industry codes of practice, I think they're useful. They allow the Small Business Commissioner to actually ensure that there's penalties for breaches of codes, and it makes sure that there's enforceability in particular sectors in the economy. And there's also the element of unfair contract terms in business-to-business contract involving small business. And we know that we've seen difficulties in particular when it comes to, say, large supermarket retail, large retail proprietors, when smaller businesses are involved in some what can be described as very difficult contractual arrangements, and small business often comes out second. I just wanted to address 4 key points, if I may, before I conclude. Point 16, part 2, page 16, requirement to provide information. The Commissioner may, I quote, by a notice requiring any person or government agency to provide such information relating to a person's agency's dealing with the small business as the Commissioner reasonably requires for the purpose of the Act. So the Commissioner can say, I want you to give me all of the information you have about the dealings that you have made with this small business. And what if the business, Woolworths, says no? Well, what can the Commissioner do? They can basically do nothing. There's no penalties attracted to it. There's no stick that the Small Business Commissioner can engage with. That's why, in our view, there needs to be a penalty clause in this legislation. That a person, for example, must not, without reasonable excuse, fail or refuse to comply with requirements under this section, say 50 penalty points. That would be a reasonable thing to ensure that people comply. Because at the moment, the powers that we have, well, there are no enforceable powers under this legislation. Secondly, government agencies get off the hook. If they say, oh, we don't want to provide anything to the Small Business Commissioner, we've really dragged this small business over the coals, but the Commissioner says, I want to see the information with the engagement you've had with the small business, what can happen? Well, all the department has to say is it's not in the public interest, and the Commissioner can't get a thing. Well, that needs to be changed to make sure that the public interest can't be misused, to make sure that they are treated the same as businesses. They have to give information to the Small Business Commissioner where it's required. As well as that, the worst thing that can happen, this is the big stick that we've got when Woolworths or Coles don't act. The Commissioner may refer to the Director General of the Department of Finance and Services. Why the DG is getting involved, who knows? Any findings by the Commissioner that a person or body has persistently engaged in anti-competitive practices that are in contravention of any law. So the worst thing is they don't have to reply to you when you ask for information. So the big firm doesn't have to reply. They don't need to provide any information. But if they finally do get some information, you write a letter to the Director General saying, we think they did something naughty. Well, big deal. Well, big deal. So what actual steps should be taken? Well, what should happen is that if the Director General is satisfied there's been anti-competitive behaviour, because the legislation says if there's anti-competitive behaviour that's taken place, we write a letter to the DG. What should happen is the Director General should be actually required to make a referral to the ACCC if there's anti-competitive behaviour that's been proved. Not only make a referral to the ACCC, but they should also have some type of parliamentary involvement, some type of other oversight. So, Mr Temporary Speaker, my point is that the types of requests that this legislation provides are positive, but there's no penalty if people fail to do that. And so, of course, where is the incentive? If there is a large organisation acting in a monopolistic way, or they're acting in an anti-competitive way, they're predatory in their behaviour or other senses, the Small Business Commissioner wants to get information, they just don't give it back to them. They don't provide information to the Small Business Commissioner, no penalty can be applied. Or furthermore, if there is an issue where the Commissioner feels there is anti-competitive behaviour, they write a letter to the DG, what happens then? Well, there needs to be really clear steps that the ACCC is involved. There's referral to the ACCC or other steps that need to be taken to make sure that it isn't a toothless tiger. I think it's very important as well, there needs to be something very clearly stated that any interference with an investigation by the Commissioner is subject to some kind of a penalty, 50 penalty units for example, so we can make sure that where there is behaviour which is anti-competitive, which is destroying or impacting negatively on small business can actually have faith that the Commissioner has the powers to be able to make sure that behaviour stops. to make sure that we support small business, that they can continue to grow and prosper and act as the backbone of our local economic, social and social community. Thank you.
I thank the member for Balmain.